As for the hadith is narrated by Jundub ibn Abdullah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu قال, he said, كنا مع النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ونحن فتيان حزائر. We were with Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and we were young men close to bulugh, close to maturity, i.e. Physical, mental maturity. فَتَعَلَّمْنَا الْإِيمَانِ, and we used to study and we used to learn from Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Iman, before we used to learn from him Quran, and then we used to learn from him Quran, and then our Iman used to increase. This is a methodology of sallallahu alaihi wasallam when it comes to teaching the ummah about its deen, which we cannot gain through our fitrah and aql and through trial and error, which we have to gain in detail through the wahy. So Prophet ﷺ, from the Quran, he used to then teach the young Sahaba Iman. He used to teach them Iman. In other words, he used to teach them in detail what and how, what they should believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how then they should bond with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So whatever Sallallahu learned from the Quran, from the revelation about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he used to explain it in his own words to them, by which they began to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in detail, the young men and young women. Because that is reality of tawhid. When a Muslim embeds tawhid in his heart and then begins to bond with Allah through his heart at a personal level with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as his Khaliq, as his Malik, as his Raziq, as his Mawla, as his Wakil, and so forth and so on. It is that personal relationship that the individual has with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is also, he is also at that level, and all the prophets also at that level of being a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they were also born with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after they were prophets, and that is the minimum level of bonding that we all as a Muslim need to reach. We all need to reach a level of tawheed by which we are all bonding with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in reality at a personal level, as me as being his creation, and him being my creator, and me as being his worshipper, and he is the being whom I am worshipping. Me deep down ultimately upon him or with him, or ultimately my love is for him, ultimately my exaltation is for him, ultimately my fear is of him and no one and nobody else. Ultimately I see him as the most beautiful, most merciful, most generous of beings, and ultimately I am returning to him. Ultimately he will take me into account. Ultimately he will also reward me. So it's a personal journey, it's a personal bonding, and that is the essence of muwahhid. That is the essence of tawheed. A person can memorize all the books of tawheed. He may not have not even grain of tawheed in his heart. A person can grow up in the house of revelation. He may have not even atoms weight of tawheed in his heart. Okay. We forget these brothers. We forget them, and Shaitan misleads us very easily. For example, if we see Sallallahu in detail how he was teaching the young Sahabi tawheed is amazing. For example, how he taught Abdullah Abbas tawheed. Well, he was explaining the verses of power and authority, of accountability, of reward, of qadr. In that one hadith of Abdullah Abbas, Ya ghulam inni u'allimuka kalimatin ihfadillah yahfaduk. Yeah, that famous hadith in Tirmidhi. Sallallahu taught him tawheed, the essence of tawheed. Like that, we're going to teach our children and we're going to teach ourselves. And inshallah, I'm planning, I've collected all the verses of tawheed in the Quran. Inshallah, we will go through them after we finish, we become a bit more free with some of our lessons. But sadly, the way people teach tawhid is they collect those verses or even hadith and they go into technical matters. Technical matters only comes afterwards. First, you need to ingrain in people's heart who Allah Jalla wa Ala is and the relationship that you as a person or you as a being must have with Allah Jalla wa Ala must attain. It's a personal journey, it's a personal bonding with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala you must attain. That is first and foremost. After that, you can go into technicalities, no problem. But that needs to be focused and that needs to be concentrated upon when one teaches tawhid. And I don't like the word teaching tawhid. Tawhid isn't really taught. Tawhid is more developed. You cannot teach tawhid. You can teach technicalities of tawhid, yes. But tawhid, you cannot teach it. You need to develop it. That's why Allah Jalla wa Ala, when He wanted to teach tawhid, He developed tawhid in the hearts of the Sahaba. He didn't teach it. He didn't say, believe in this and believe in that, believe in this and believe in that, believe in this and believe in that. Khalas, you become a Muslim, you become a muwahhid. Yeah? He made them go through journeys in real time, in real life of theirs, by which then they began to know the power, the authority, the accountability, the reward of Allah Jalla wa Ala subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then, but through that tarbiyah, they attained the tawhid. They attained tawhid consciously. They affirmed it. So tawhid is given through tarbiyah. Tawhid is developed within the hearts and minds of people and within the character of people. It is not taught. It can never be taught. It can never be taught. Everything else, through teaching, it can lead to tarbiyah. Through teaching, it can lead to tarbiyah and it can lead to then accepting and affirming it. When it comes to tawhid, it's the other way around. It needs to be taught through tarbiyah and not taught through the normal way of teaching. Simply because the being whom we are teaching about is ghaib. And thereby the realities of life and the realities of matters makes that ghaib being present. Not teaching. Teaching just remains at the teaching of tawhid simply remains at the level of information. Because you're not practicing yet. You're not living yet. You only live when you go through realities of life, and then Allah Jalla wa Ala is present. And then you acknowledge it, you see it, you witness it, and then tawhid is developed. Okay? For example, if I was to teach you salah, you can learn it. It becomes knowledge, not information. Why? Because you can go straight to the masjid and establish salah. If I teach you zakah, straight away, you can calculate zakah, you can give zakah. If I teach you hajj or siyam, you can do it. Something you can literally do it straight away. And thereby you learn as you go along. So it becomes real. Allah Jalla wa Ala, doesn't matter how much I teach you about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He remains what? Ghaib. He remains ghaib. So only way He becomes real in your life is through real events of your personal life. Where then He begins to play a role, and you begin to, obviously He's playing a role anyway, but you begin to see and witness it, that He's playing a role, exactly where He's playing a role and how He's playing a role, and then it becomes tawheed. Firstly, it becomes a personal tawheed, and that personal tawheed then embeds within the general tawheed of understanding and information that we have, and then you become a Muslim in reality, or you become wahid in reality. So this tackles the sort of dialogue that people have. Do you have to teach Aqidah and Tawheed through books, or can you teach it through Quran? Yeah, it's this huge debate and dialogue that people are having on social media. And I was informed by some of the students of knowledge on this issue, and I said what is the issue? Is the issue teaching or is the issue tarbiyah? What's the issue? If the issue is teaching, then obviously you teach it from the book. You have to teach it from the book, because there are technicalities of tawhid that is not found in the Quran or in the Sunnah in terms of listing and numbers. So in that sense, you need to teach it from the book. If it's to do with tarbiyah of tawhid, to develop tawhid and embed it within the hearts and minds of people, by which it becomes their belief and ibadah and character, then that needs to be given through the wahy and through the experiences of individual, going through the experiences of their own lives. Yeah, that cannot be taught through books. So there's two different things here we're talking about. Is that clear, brothers? So the issue is clear, inshallah. ثم تعلم القرآن, and then we learned the Quran. What does that mean? We learned the recitation of the Quran. We concentrated on memorizing the Quran and recitation of the Quran. Or we learned the ahkam of the Quran, i.e. the fiqh, the laws. When I say fiqh and laws, I don't only mean simply the laws of salah and the ibadat. I mean everything in every aspect of living of a life. And then our iman increased. Why did it increase? Because naturally, when you have that bonding, when you first have that information from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you have that bonding in your real life, and then you learn the ahkam, you place the ahkam within the context of who Allah is, and whom this creation belongs to, and where is it going. You place it within all of those contexts, and then obviously the ahkam flows, your intentions, your purposes, your goals, your ambitions, your mission, your vision. Your day-to-day life, your marriages, your eating, your walking, your talking, your salawat, your zakat, your siyam, everything flows. They fall into the origin of matters. They fall into the cosmology of matters. Thereby they flow. And thereby naturally, when things flow, naturally you find sweetness. Naturally you find momentum. Naturally you find comfort. And naturally you begin to feel close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's one mindset, let me give it to you, very important. And that is, everyone is young when it comes to tawhid. You're never too old to develop tawhid. In other words, you're never too old to develop tawhid. You're never too mature to develop tawhid. You're never too wise to develop tawhid. You're never too educated to develop tawhid. You're always young. There's a mindset we have, sadly. As soon as we have the mindset of tawheed is within books, as soon as we have that mindset, we have this mindset. From this mindset stems another misleading mindset. And that is, I finished so many books on tawheed, so many books on aqidah, so many books on iman. I don't need tawheed anymore. Subconscious mindset we have. And then your salawat, your zakat becomes robotic. Simply becomes rigid and robotic. And literally you're sucking out the soul of ibadah. It's like instead of sucking in the soul of ibadah, you're sucking it out. Whatever you had, you're sucking it out. And literally you find these people completely lost and confused and completely soulless. They may have a lot of ilm, they may have a lot of data, they may have a lot of talk and so forth. They may have a lot of writings, they may have a lot of lectures, but the actual tawheed is completely either I wouldn't say completely gone, but it's become very weak to the extent that they hardly mention it. So it's so important that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always in where He's meant to be. And thereby, as Sahaba, as a Tabi'in, used to say, whenever we used to see the Sahaba, they used to remind us of Allah. That's Tawheed. Tawheed. That's what distinguishes us from the rest of humanity. The rest of humanity, they believe in things and beings and a'udhu billah, whatnot. What distinguishes us as Muslims, first and foremost, is that tawheed. It's not just Allah is one. The set is like a number. Allah is one. No, there's no way. It's not that. Allah is Allah with all of His greatness and grandeur and majesty. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. And I've said so many times, if we believe the way we're meant to believe of Allah, that in of itself should suffice us as Muslims to enrich ourselves and have izzah and have dignity and have honor and empower ourselves and empower others, not feel shamed and belittled or feel inferior. If we have tawheed as we're meant to have, that in of itself suffices. That in itself is the most powerful thing than anything else and everything. So we are never too old to develop tawheed. Obviously there are practical ways to increase it and develop it. First and foremost, recitation of the Quran. This is a must. Dhikr, adhkar, it's a must. Constantly you have dhikr upon your tongue, or at least if you cannot do all this in your tongue, at least have it in your heart. But tongue is good, because when you have it on your tongue, slowly it will become in your subconscious, in your heart. So tilawa, constantly reciting the Quran, dhikr, adhkar, tilawa, and then secretive intentions, as we said last lesson, or I think Thursday lesson, and secretive ambitions and visions and missions, and then secretive ibadat which are not public, keep it private. These embolden your tawheed, because then your whole journey of life becomes in reality for the sake of Allah, because your intentions are very secretive, your missions are very secretive, your ambitions are very secretive, and so forth. So these are the core of who you are, and the core of who you are, if you're keeping a secret for Allah, that means Allah is at your core. Allah is real of your journey, and everything else is as they are meant to be. And Allah is, as Allah is where He is meant to be, in your heart, in your iman, in your tawheed, in your mind. So then it becomes real. It becomes real. To some people, He is so real, that no intention is made except Allah is present in the heart. No plan is made except Allah is present in the plan. No vision or no mission or no goal, no ambition they make except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is present, A to Z. That's how real Allah is to them. To other people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is like a fairy tale, and the two people are Muslim. Two people are Muslim. First one is a Muslim, second one is a Muslim. But the first one, the way he lives his life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is real, like any other being who's around them. And Allah is more real than that. And to another person, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is simply a fairy tale. It's just simply a fairy tale. So dhikr, adhkar, tilawa, secretive intentions and goals and missions and ambitions. Also taking yourself account. If you can take yourself account, really judge yourself. Am I sincere? Am I not sincere? Why did I say this? Why did I say that? What was my intention? And judge yourself. Then that is also a sign that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists in reality in your heart. So the more you take yourself account, the more Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists. And criticize yourself in your intentions, in your thoughts, in your actions, in your reactions. And you can come to that conclusion that here I was wrong, or here I said with the wrong intention, or here I intended something harm, or here it was harmful, or here I was wrong, or here I was biased. The more you can judge yourself according to the judgment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more Allah becomes real in your life. A few weeks back, I can remember there was one of the imams, he was telling off the students. He was telling them off constantly. And I was sitting and I couldn't even concentrate on just sitting down, because he was telling the students, children, 7, 8, 9-year-olds, he's telling them off constantly. Don't move, don't talk, don't raise your hands. So eventually after Salah, I went up to him, and there's another person. I thought I'll ignore it and not speak about it. So there's another imam, he knew me, and he came, approached me and slammed me, and then that imam also was with him, so he said, oh, this is so. So he introduced. After introduction, I said to the individual, try not to be so harsh and assertive towards the children. You said it once, class. The children, they'll play, they'll laugh, they'll chit-chat, they'll poke this one, they'll poke that one. And we all did this. This is what children do, they play. Anyway, he didn't take it nicely. Because I was making dua to Allah subhanahu to give us an opportunity for me to speak to him. So that other imam opened the discussion of introduction. So from there I spoke to him. So he didn't take it nicely. So alhamdulillah, khalas, I did my job of saying what I needed to say. After a few weeks, he bumped into me again. This time he thanked me. First he was very defensive. No, I didn't do anything wrong. But after a few weeks, subhanAllah, he thanked me. And then I said, I was just about to say to him that the reason he was wrong was he was consistent, constant. But before I could even say that to him, he said to me, please don't mention it, it's embarrassing. And he left. Ajib thing about that incident was that he went home and he thought about it. He did muhasabah. And he realized he was wrong. That's a sign of true muwahhid. That's a sign of true person who has Allah in his conscience. Yeah? And I'm sure this happens to you. If it doesn't, you got a big problem. You have a big problem. So the more you do that, the more Allah becomes a reality with yourself. Also, staying with the people of tawhid. And when I say people of tawhid, I don't mean people of ibadah. A lot of times, there's another misconception. A lot of time, people combine between people of ibadah and people of tawhid. Not necessarily. Not necessarily every person who is a worshipper, he's a person of tawhid. Not necessarily. But every person of tawhid is a worshipper of Allah. It's a very important mindset to have. So find the people of tawhid and be with them, stay with them. Right? Yesterday, one of my students was giving me nasiha. Night time, was giving me nasiha. And I accepted his nasiha. Why? Because he was a person of tawhid. His tawhid was coming out in his words. One of my students, one of my course students. But he was giving me nasiha. And I went for him to put nasiha as well. Called them up and I said, look, I need nasiha. Can you come and give me some nasiha? They were shocked. But that's what we should do. That's what we're meant to do. I couldn't find anyone else, so I called them up. Both of them are course students. They both came and they gave me nasiha. Long 2 hours nasiha. Alhamdulillah, I accepted every single thing they said to me. I said, Jazakumullah khair. Allah bless you, brothers. Good to have students like yourselves, Why? Because they're people of tawheed. Not necessarily people of ibadah. They are worshippers also. Because they live with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are in their hearts, they have Allah Jalla wa ala subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they live by that. So they manifest the power of Allah, the accountability of Allah, the wrath of Allah, the rewards of Allah. Allah is the protector, Allah is the Mawla, Allah is the Wakil. So they manifest that. Irrespective of whether they are worshippers in the sight of people or not. So this is something very important. Is to stay with people of tawheed. Is to be around them. Is to keep them close. Is to ask for nasihas from them. Ask du'as from them. If they be your teachers, ni'mah upon ni'mah. If they be your students, more of a ni'mah. Because alhamdulillah, if I don't be successful, inshallah, they can, intercede for me. So it's important to be around them. Because when life gets difficult, when you could have studied hundreds of books, you could have memorized hundreds of books on tawhid, but when life gets difficult, these books really come to no use. What comes to use is people of tawhid around you. They come to use. So whatever they say, whatever they direct, whatever they advise you, this can be either if you listen and obey them, it will make you. If you don't obey them, it can break you. So at the end of the day, the people who are around you must be people of tawhid. Must be people of tawhid. And if you can produce people like that, Allah is a ni'mah. If you can have people like that around you, Allah is it's the ni'mah. It's the greatest ni'mah you can have, people of tawhid around you. Another way to increase tawheed is to do deeds, as I think I mentioned this Thursday, is to do deeds of sacrifice. Deeds of sacrifice. This is crucial. This is crucial. And one of the nasihas of yesterday that I got from the brothers is on this issue. It's on this issue because I made the intention and it was to do with sacrifice, and I was struggling, and I asked them, should I continue or should I leave it? But yeah, so it's one of the questions I asked them. So sacrifice is key in developing tawheed.
That put you an apparent loss.
The sacrifice, you take on responsibilities which you know you can fulfill, but it's very difficult, it's very challenging, it's very hard. You don't have to do it, but you take on it. You take on those roles, you take on the responsibilities of a person, or of a family, or of an ummah. Right? You take it on. You've got the ability, but it's very, very challenging. It consumes your time, it consumes your energy, it consumes your mind, it consumes your emotions, and so forth. So sacrifice. The more you sacrifice, the more you find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The more you find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more you develop your tawheed. Some of the Salaf used to say, I do not find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except in trials. Except in trials. So there's to look out for trials. Not necessarily there's to yearn for trials, but there's to look out for them. So one of the greatest trials is sacrifices. When you sacrifice for people, it's the greatest trial. It's a very lonely journey when you're sacrificing for people, because you can't tell anyone, because it's a sacrifice. And when you are about to break and you can't do it anymore, there's only very few people you can turn to for help, because it's a very high level of sacrifice you're doing, and not many people can help you. So either you leave it or either you continue. But that's when you begin to find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's so important to sacrifice, and that will grow you, motivate you, develop you to a level only Allah knows. Sacrifice a lot. Sacrifice your time, sacrifice your energy, sacrifice your wealth, sacrifice your knowledge also. For example, when you're exhausted and tired, you want to go home and go to sleep, or eat food, you're starving, and people still want to ask you questions and they want to still learn from you. Sacrifice that time for them. Let your starvation go out the window. Let your tiredness go out the window. So sacrifice. The more you do that, someone needs help, you're exhausted, they call you night time, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, they need your help, they're crying on the phone. Alas, give your sleeping time. Sacrifice. These are sacrifice. These things are very valuable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not only will you find Allah Jalla wa Ala in those places and those things and those matters, but they're also very valuable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Very valuable. They're very weighty in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And with them you gain your status and your rank. Yani some of the Salaf used to say that competition are in two things. Competition are two things. Intentions and sacrifice. So all goes back to the intentions we make and then the sacrifices we make. Inshallah, I'll give the last point and that will be the end. Kathrat al-Tawbah. Last one is Tawbah. A lot of Tawbah. Allahumma afir wa tub alayya innaka tawwabur rahim. Astaghfirullah wa ghafur rahim. Allahumma anta rabbi la ilaha illa anta khalaqtani wa ana abdik. A lot of Tawbah, a lot of istighfar of Tawbah. Tawbah in of itself embeds the reality of you and reality of Allah at a very peak level. I think we spoke that in the mindset class. Tawbah embeds the reality of you and the reality of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at a level of greatness of Allah and the reality of you, at the same time the value of you in the sight of Allah. So, if you were to ask me what is the greatest ibadah after Iman in Jalla wa Ala subhanahu wa ta'ala, I will say Tawbah. Tawbah. Obviously Tawbah, sincere Tawbah. And that's in the famous hadith, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, if a person was to do sins up to the sky, and then he's to come to Allah Jalla wa Ala, all of those sins in repentance, without committing shirk, that's Iman. Without committing shirk, but he comes in repentance, Allah says, I don't care about all of those sins. La ubali. I don't care. He doesn't care whatsoever all of those sins that have committed up to the sky. There's very few, inshallah, of us who will commit sins up to the sky. La ubali. He doesn't care. Because the greatness of this ibadah of Tawbah. And inshallah, refer back to my mindset class, I'll go in detail why this is the case. Refer back to the mindset class, inshallah. So do lots of Tawbah. Do lots of Tawbah. And Tawbah also by default, if it's sincere Tawbah, it completely kills the inner diseases which destroys a person. Like ujub, amazement, riya, showing off, so arrogance, pride. That's how the difference between Adam's sins and Iblis' sin is what? Tawbah. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وسب آدم and Hawa. And Iblis said, فأنظرني إلى يوم يبعثون. Give me power until the end of time. Yeah? Difference between Iblis and Adam was Tawbah. جزاكم الله خير. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم.